So we dealt with items that had spending. I notice
Haven't dealt with any of these yet.
This is all new.
I know, but they range from 1% to 82%. I'm just wondering
If we want to,
which ones we want to.
Might benefit from some.
Welcome to our special council meeting, Thursday, January the 25th. I'd like to acknowledge that we're holding this on the traditional lands of the Klama Nation. And we'll start with any announcements. I'd just like to indicate that we have a long discussion in front of us. We will break every 90 minutes. And hopefully, as I said on Tuesday, it will be finished about 2:30 in the morning, but we were a little ahead of schedule on Tuesday, so I'm hoping the same can happen today. And let's move to the adoption of the agenda, of which I believe there is a proposed change. Councillor Doudt.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to add an item to the agenda, add item number 10.1, extension of Harbour Users Advisory Committee application period. And when we get to that, I'll make a motion.
Seconded. I just have a question. I'm just wondering if anybody in the audience has any interest in Harbour User Advisory Committee, whether or not they're going to be here at 2:30 tomorrow morning, whether we would like to move that up in the agenda to be item 3 or 4. Is that it's okay? Seems to have a consensus.
Be fine with that. 4.1.
Okay, 4.1. Thank you. So we have a motion on the floor for approval. All in favor? Passed unanimously. Yeah. 4.1.
I think we're there already.
We're there. 4.1.
We got there quickly. I appreciate that. The motion I'd like to make is that staff be directed to extend the application period for members of the public to apply to the Harbour Users Advisory Committee with adequate notice and resources for the application process made available to the public from January 26th to February 16th, 2024. If there's a seconder, I'll give a brief explanation. You know, we're moving along with the Harbour Advisory Committee. There was announcements in the midweek, I believe, paper about the application process, but the fact is that news release never made it to the city's website, and the application process never made it onto the city's website at all. And I and others have heard from people who wanted to apply for the committee and haven't been able to. So this would simply allow an extra application period so anybody who wants to can get involved, and we'll be able to find an application on the city's website. So we'll make it open to as many as want to participate to apply.
Thank you. We have a motion. All in favor? Passed unanimously.
Thank you.
Councillor Elliott.
I just had a comment. I've been hearing a lot of people are very interested in the structure and makeup of the committee, and we have that as part of our terms of reference. I'm just wondering if we wouldn't want to have the committee also look at recommendations for their own structure once they're formed, as if in case they wanted to make changes to that themselves or thought it was a good idea. I'm just wondering if that's something council wanted to consider or not.
I believe that once the committee is in place, they have the ability to recommend that.
Okay, thank you.
We'll now move to the 8th, which is reports for decision, prioritize 2024 5-year capital plan. And just so that we're all on the same wavelength here, that we will be listening to roughly 150 items, and council will then either move that staff be directed to remove this item, or that staff will be directed to defer the item. So I would ask the CFO to start off.
Thank you. Good afternoon. We have, as staff, worked together to prioritize the Draft 1 capital plan. It's a 5-year financial plan, and it does include 152 items, totaling about 63 million over 5 years. And because we have a high number of items to get through, I won't go into detail as I introduce this, other than to say a priority matrix was established in order to rank the capital projects as 1, which would be high priority, 2 is medium, and 3 is low. The 4 factors that were considered when ranking was risk level. Risk level, as an example, would be if this asset were to fail, there would be a potential safety concern or a massive impact on services. That would be high risk level, for example. External funding relates to grants. Some projects are fully or partially grant funded, so we've provided that information to help in decision making. The 3rd is % complete. Of course, if a project is near completion, it impacts how we rank the priority. High priority projects would be ones that are nearing completion. And return on investment. Some of these projects do have a return on investment, and so that has been factored into the prioritization. The capital plan has been sorted from highest priority, so we'll start with all of the first, number 1, high priority, then medium, and we'll finish with low. And should you have any questions, staff are here to answer them. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So I just ask that as we go through these lists, that for in particular item, if a councillor has spoken in favor or opposed, and another councillor wishes to say the same thing, perhaps they could just suggest that they agree with the previous councillor, and we might get out of here by midnight. So let's start with item number 1, which is the airport runway paving. Councillor Elliott.
I would like to skip the items that are mainly funded by grants because I don't think they're worth the time to talk about. And it seems quite a no-brainer that if it's mainly funded by grants, that we should move forward with it, and staff have already gone through the investment and time in applying for those grants, and that's why they're on the docket.
Is there a suggestion, Councillor Elliott? Just one question first from Councillor Almeida, and then we'll.
Thank you. Overall, I'm not opposed to that strategy. My one question, and I might have missed something in my reading or listening, does the grant category also count the community forest grants as well?
Through the chair, one thing to clarify, thank you, is that community forest grant funding would be classified as reserve funding. And there's also grants that the city receives annual that are not tied to a project. They go in a reserve, and then that reserve could fund the project. So some of the reserve funding is funded by grants, but that's not how that wouldn't be called a grant for this purposes. And the reason we do that is because the grants on this file we want to show are the grants tied to the project that would otherwise go away if the project was to stop. Whereas the other grants that fund reserve, we call that just reserve funding, because as soon as it goes into the reserve in that respect, it's for any number of items that we could use it for.
So Councillor Palm, and then we'll get back to Councillor Elliott.
I wanted to speed our process up, and I'm suggesting we not individually address ones that are being fully funded or mostly funded by grants and skip over them.
So what I'm going to suggest, Councillor Palm, is that after you finish talking, that Councillor Elliott will give us the numbers and we can then tick off on our sheet, and if there's an agreement, we'll move forward. So over to you, Councillor Palm.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with the items, but when some of the grant items don't cover substantial costs and there's a small percentage that's been spent to date, I think we should be looking at each of them individually in that regard. If it's 50% or more, I don't have an issue since we're further down the path, but ones that are 2% complete, that type of thing, I think we should be taking a look at.
Councillor Elliott, do you have a motion now with numbers?
I could get some numbers together here. So I'm looking at item number 1. Item number 14. Item number 20. Item number 23. I'll leave 66 on the docket because it is a big grant, but there's also a big portion unfunded. So item number 67.
Sorry, Your Worship, item number 67, that's one that I would like to see.
Okay. Cancel item number 67. Item number 70. Item number 75.
If I could, 70, the one that has 1%. Is that right?
It's not completed yet. It needs some better weather, I believe, but it's mainly covered by a grant. There is a portion outstanding, and we also have debated that particular issue before council already. Yeah. So item number 75 was where I left off. And I think that would be good.
Seconded by Councillor Almeida. Yes. Any discussion, Councillor Doubt?
I have a question, and the Maple and Sycamore Safe Streets project brought this to mind because I'm curious if staff has information about any requests for proposals or contracts that may be in the middle of being negotiated for some of these projects.
Can we deal with them another time?
Well, I just, for the information, if we're going to talk about eliminating projects, maybe it might not be as free of costs to eliminate projects if they've already been sent out for requests for proposals or contracts already signed.
Sorry, just for clarification, these are to allow all of these projects to continue as identified in the document.
The opposite of what you just.
The questions individually later.
Any further, Councillor Almeida?
Thank you, Mayor. I had one small amendment to Councillor Elliott's list. And that was to add number 69, which is 85–90% grant funded and based on the contingency of getting the CMHC grant, which I believe we discussed on Tuesday from the Housing Accelerator, I think. Yeah, Director Gao, I think that's the Housing Accelerator one. So I think it's fair enough to say if we don't get the grant, housing number 69 won't happen anyways. So I'd like to add 69 to the list as well.
Clearly? Good. Clearly. The number?
9.
Okay. Yes.
Guidance through our corporate office,
Thank you.
please.
Just to keep procedurally clear, if we could possibly, or so we're not amending the amendment, because we can amend the amendment if you wanted to do it that way. Through the chair, we did get a seconder for Councillor Almeida's amendment. So is Councillor Palm amending Councillor Almeida's amendment?
Okay, we have seconder.
Okay,
Now we need another seconder, or are we good?
We just have to do 3 votes now in a row.
Great.
yes, so we need to vote on adding Councillor Palm's of number 54, that's correct?
So we'll move on the amended amendment. First of all in favor? Passed unanimously. We'll now move to the amendment. All in favor? Move to the main motion. All in favor? Thank you.
Very efficient, thank you.
We're now on item number 2, which is Fire and Emergency Services new facility. Yes, Councillor Isaacs.
I move that staff be directed to defer item number 2 as presented in Appendix A.
Seconded by Councillor Almeida. Any discussion?
My rationale is I know staff will be bringing back a report on new potential fire and emergency services facility. And so we need to wait for that to happen. And so this decision will come up anyways for us.
All in favor of the motion? Passed unanimously. Okay, item number 3 is the Aquatic Center roof improvements. Councillor Palm.
Yes, I'd like to move that staff be directed to add item number 3 as presented.
Oh,
Been a long time coming.
sorry. I'm sorry, Councillor Palm. This was a little confusing because it's the opposite of Tuesday. So here the options are to remove the item or to defer the item. But we do nothing if we want it to stay.
Oh, we just skip it. Okay.
Yeah, we did.
Let's skip it.
Staff was giving us a little bit of a challenge to keep us alive during these long meetings, and they switched things up.
Councillor Palm wants to skip this one.
Councillor Almeida.
I'm not necessarily opposed to this, and I think I'll ask staff for clarification, but I'm pretty sure the 6 million that comes from this has already been pre-approved through community forest grants to the entirety. Is that correct?
Through the chair, it's partially funded through community forests, the infrastructure capital reserve, and the Canada Community Building Fund.
And so 0 to the taxpayers?
Through the chair, it's through reserves, it's not funded directly through property tax.
And one follow-up question to that, I guess, is I love our facility, but I know it's also aging. Do we have a rough idea of the extended life we'll be getting through these improvements?
Through the chair, we had an extensive report in 2020 on a series of improvements proposed for the complex, put together as a rehabilitation plan. From that, the roof was identified as one item. In order to feel comfortable putting a roof on, we've gone to tender for testing the pool basin just to ensure what the lifespan of that is before we put a pool on. It is in tender phase right now. We're expecting the results to come back. If we get some tenders, we're hoping to get those results probably within the next few months. At that point, we'll know a lot better.
Councillor Elliott.
So I think in the future, not today, we could use a summary of our rec center, where we're at, the life of it, how the plans all integrate together, because we have a lot of them, and whether that addresses seismic or doesn't address seismic, and what we're worried about or not worried about. So if we could get that on the agenda and help us all get updated on that, that would be super wonderful.
Through the chair, yes, we will do that. We'll work with our engineering department and have that information for you.
Thank you.
Seeing no motions on this, I assume that it will stay and we'll move forward. Great. Item number 4, pavement management program. We have a brief description of our pavement.
Through the chair, the pavement management program for 2024 is slated at 1.7 million. So we had very good luck not last year, the year before, with having a larger program like this, and what that means for us financially is a much more volume we're able to do for the dollar. So when we can get these bigger programs, it enables us to go farther for the dollar. We typically get better pricing, more competition, and different contractors. So this one, just to give you an idea, some of the roads on the list so far. We've got Westview Avenue, Marine to Fairmont, Sutherland, Duncan Street, Joyce to Manson, Mowat, Selkirk, Cassier, Michigan Avenue, Lois Street, Sutherland to King, and various other streets just on the quick list for you.
Thank you. Any motions? Yes, Councillor South.
A question. A couple of years ago, we bulked the 2 years all into one so we could get more for our money. Is that what's being? I see that's what's being proposed by this 1.7 amount. I also see that $1 million is being budgeted for the next few years, but is the same basic idea going to be continued?
Through the chair, yes, that would be correct. So that's a decent number, and we're able to get some pretty advantageous pricing at that $1 million mark. This year will be a little bit more exceptional for us.
Okay, so if I see no motions to defer, Councillor Elliott.
Just a question again. So the $1 million a year is kind of a marker, but you may end up skipping some years and lumping up in other years? Is that fair assessment?
Through the chair, I think that's definitely an option. If we feel we could use that option, I think we're more likely to keep on spending that $1 million and keep on the roadways, just to keep up with what's happening out there with the roadways themselves and keep them in good repair.
Councillor Almeida.
Thank you, Mayor. Correct me if I'm wrong, because I often am, and I could be completely off base. considering the investment in our roads, and I remember Director Gao sharing last year about the development of roads and such. Are we close to, or are we getting to a point where eventually it makes sense to have an investment of equipment to be able to upkeep our roads in-house versus outsourcing those contracts on a regular basis?
Thank you. Through the chair, that's my favorite question. So I'll just give you an idea. So I think right-sizing the projects is kind of where we're at. So what we typically do now is we try to right-size. So and what I mean by that is what we can do in-house. So we're able to do in-house pothole patching of certain sizes. We have the equipment of certain sizes. It's small, so we're able to do smaller patches. That saves us probably fourfold. So what we're able to do for $2,000 worth of material and labor would typically cost us somewhere between $6,000 and $8,000 in contracted costs. So we're right-sized there. I believe we're doing a good service for the community with that dollar. Where it gets to the bigger ones, the full width roadway, milling and paving, I don't think we're there yet. We could put a business case together for some big equipment to do that, but I think we're better off with kind of that smaller piece, what we're able to handle, and leave that big stuff to, because that involves asphalt plants and all kinds of different equipment. I don't think we're there yet. I think it's best left to keep that to the contractors out there who can keep each other competitive as well.
So don't.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, so far I haven't heard anybody who seems to be in favor of not doing the pavement maintenance. And we've had some really fulsome reports to council about the projected pavement needs long into the future, and this 1.7 million for next year and 1 million on years going ahead looks to me from recollection that it will simply try to keep up with the pavement needs that we're going to have going into the future. It won't actually improve the overall streets in the whole city, because as you pave, they continue to deteriorate. Everything 5 years from now will be 5 years older than it is today. So, rather than, and we've talked about these plans at council, all of these capital plans in some detail. And, I don't think we're going to get very far if we try to re-examine every detail of every project as we go through today. There's a lot of projects, a lot of details to talk about. And I think the real question is, do we want to go ahead with the program or not?
That's the Palm.
Through the chair, just a couple of items on pavement. One, when I was first elected, we had a book on the shelf in regards to our paving needs in the community. And because of that study that was done, we were able, close to an election, to land $3 million towards repaving Joyce Avenue and other streets. Do we have such a report somewhere sitting if in a couple of years' time or a year's time prior to the election, the same type of opportunity arises?
Through the chair, I'll just ask my counterpart, Nagy Risk, if he could maybe speak to that question.
Good afternoon. Could I hear the question again one more time, please?
Would you like me to repeat my question?
Yes, please.
Yes. So when I was first elected, we had a consultant provide a report on pavement needs in the city. And because we had that report sitting there, when an opportunity through the federal government came up, we were able to get a grant for $3 million and redo Joyce and other arteries in our city. Do we have somewhere in place right now, with an election coming up, something to that extent in terms of a report that we could utilize for that type of grant funding?
Thank you for the chair, for the questions through the chair. We do have a report, but it's quite dated. So I'm not sure we can use that same report now to apply for further funds. And I'm not aware about any funds that are available for payment.
That's something maybe we should look at in terms of updating a report on pavement needs. Have a plan in place.
Through the chair, yes, absolutely. Yes.
Well, the other thing is, through both of you gentlemen, we've had a number of breaks on our PVC 4-inch underneath our roads, causing repairs in the middle of the night over the holiday season and whatnot because of the temperatures. Is there any plan in place in terms of this pavement plan to replace any of that 4-inch PVC pipe that keeps giving us problems?
Through the
Just sorry, just a clarification. Are we talking about the water mains, asbestos pipes?
Yes, water 4-inch.
Thank you. I'll leave it to the operation manager for this answer. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I think that if there's a consensus that we want to leave this where it is, if I see a consensus there, then we'll move on to item 5, which is the complex thermal ice plant heat recovery. Any discussions? We move forward? Yes, Councillor Almeida.
No, Councillor Palm, I wanted to talk about this. I was just curious, I guess the 500,000, is that also community forest funds or taxpayers?
Through the chair, yes, that additional funding is community forest.
Okay, see no, Councillor Elliott.
Just maybe a quick few words so we can understand what the project is.
Through the chair, this is a recovery project for heat that the building produces. It would be mainly installing an ammonia condenser heat exchanger to recover about 80% of the carbon that it emits, GHG emissions. And there's also a recovery chiller.
Councillor Elliott.
So I'm assuming that heat then goes to heat like pools and things like that. And is there a net cost savings that we expect to amortize over a certain length of time? Question.
Through the chair, yes, you're correct. There is a savings. This project has the highest return on investment because it's mainly grant funded, and we'll see a significant decrease in hydro costs once it's done. Essentially, the heat from the as Mr. Bretzlaff has already explained, there will be a significant BC Hydro savings. So,
okay,
sorry, Fortis and BC Hydro.
I think I see a consensus that we want to leave this one where it is. We move to the ladder truck, replace 2001, number 44, unit FD10. Any questions? We'll leave this one where it is. Consensus, we'll move to 7, which is the water main AC replacement. Any questions for staff? Councillor? Oh, okay. Let that happen.
It happens. No
Sorry,
worries.
Councillor Almeida.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to assume, I guess, based on the equal division throughout the years, that this is a regular maintenance program similar to our roads that we are doing?
Through the chair, that is correct. So, and there are regular sections of AC pipe that we're replacing every year.
Yes, Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, Your Worship. My question is the state of our water mains and maintenance that we have going. Is that sufficient to keep us going, or is there going to be a need to be a major investment into water mains at some point that's not in the next 5 years? And do we know, are we planning for that and have reserves set aside and that sort of thing?
Through the chair, I will usually say that we're never doing enough to preserve things, but so this is a regularly occurring every year to replace older water mains. So similar to the pavement management system, my gut sense is that there's likely a strong infrastructure deficit, as in almost every other municipality. But this is just our way of keeping up.
I see no further questions. We'll move now to item 8, which is the complex electrical upgrades and emergency backup system. Any questions for staff? Right. I see a consensus that we leave this where it is. Thank you. We'll move to 9, which is water main upgrades, Marine to Alberni to Townsite. Councillor Doubt.
I wonder if staff could give us a quick description of what that project actually is. And I see there's expenditures in 2024 there. So, my question before is, has there been a request for proposals or a contract issued to do that?
Through the chair, so I can give you some background in this item. This water main runs along Marine Avenue from Alberni to service the new RRC Center, Resource Recovery Center. So, and it's required for that center to be operational for fire flow needs. The project has been tendered and the project has been awarded. And I believe the construction will start in February of this year to be completed probably in a month or so. I'm seeing nodding of my head.
That's what I thought it was. So I don't think we have much opportunity to do anything other than go ahead with it.
Councillor Palm.
Just for the public's information through the chair, the water main portion to the new Resource Recovery Center is 100% funded by city taxpayers, correct? There is no RD contribution? Are there matching funds or not?
Through the chair, I'm not sure on that one. So yeah, looks like we're 100% funded by the city for this particular one.
Thank you.
Okay, now to the item 10, Resource Recovery Center Road, which is 7% completed. The additional.
That I just.
Councillor. Oh.
Is that accurate? The 7% completed on that road?
Through the chair, so the project itself is run by the regional district. I believe it's much more complete than 7% at this time. I would think that number is very close to 100 is what I think. So it's just a matter of when those numbers got to us.
Through the chair to, I would just to add to that, this is based on the draft 1 capital plan, which was compiled in September. So when the request came to prioritize the plan, we stick with draft 1 just so we don't add or take away anything. I would have added notable changes that this actually is about to be paid and fully complete, but that was very recent that we received the invoice because it's not a project that the city is directly overseeing, but partially funding. When we receive the invoice now, it'll be updated in draft 2 as fully complete.
I'm going to leave this where it is.
Yes.
Your worship, just to clarify for the public again, this, I believe, was shared with the RD for installation, 50-50?
Through the chair, that is correct, 50% share.
Okay, item 11 is the sewer main improvements. Questions for staff? Seeing none, we will move to item 12. The 1998 Spartan replacement unit FD6 fire, which is started. And any questions? So
I Thank you, Mayor. Just clarity, I guess, and this might be similar to what CFO Dennison just shared about this. Oh, never mind. I'm not looking all the way through the notes. Ignore my question. Thank you.
The CWAP project, which is underway. Yes, Councillor Palm.
Mr. Worship, through the chair, I have members of the audience asking me specifically about item number 13, Seawalk restoration, and they're looking forward to an update dealing with that situation. It's been ongoing for some time.
Okay. Through the chair, while some of this does predate me coming on board, this is a project that has some special considerations due to the archaeological concerns in the area, and it's something that we're working on with Tla'amin and also our archaeologists as well. I'm not sure if Mr. Bretzlaff wants to add any more or if I've covered it. Thank you.
Through the chair, that sums it up perfectly. There, it's ongoing up until the end of December this year. There's lots of communications back and forth between consultants, engineers, and the province.
Okay, I see
Your
it.
Worship, and I just have to say a few words about this project. It's been ongoing forever. Hopefully, we're going to be able to resolve the archaeological difficulties in some sense of time to be able to do this, and when the weather's adequate and we're not into storm season again, because the longer we wait, the more is going to get washed away if we don't address it. So I know we're losing staff that were previously dealing with this, and they were looking to reach out to an archaeological company in town here that could deal with it locally. I think that's still the case to speed this up. And the other thing that I have to say about it, having talked to various citizens and various people in construction, this 800, 700 some odd thousand was to raise the level of that seawalk. And if we were to do that in present day dollars on construction where we're at in this community, we'd probably be looking at far more than the amount allocated here. So I have some concerns in our financial obligations. I'm just wondering if the scope of that and resurfacing of that could be done at lesser expense, or at least the cost that's associated here, rather than raising and costing a great deal of more money. So I'm just voicing that concern from citizens. I hope we're having a good look at it in terms of our present financial situation.
CEO?
Through the chair, this is one where, as you know, the archaeology is governed through the province. Making sure that we are wise in our steps here reduces potential risk and liability should we make a mistake with the provincial regulations. So I understand this is a really important project for the community, and that we are being careful and wise to not put the city at risk. And we have engaged experts in this matter. So we will keep council updated and bring forward a report as soon as we're able to, as we have more determination on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Great. Seeing no further, we'll move to item number 14, which is the Wellington Beach campsite. It's fully granted. Do we see? Oh, sorry, we already gave that a check mark. We'll move to 15, which is the Chupac garbage truck replacement. Yes, Councillor Isaacson.
Thank you, Mayor Wasno. Questions with 15 and 16 together. I know that often we try to space out assets to ease the financial ups and downs. And so I'm wondering about these truck replacements, whether they are both required this year. Is it a regulation? Are they in such disrepair that they do need replacement? Is it possible to defer or space out these costs a little bit more?
Through the chair, yes to all. So these trucks purchased their 2017 Chupac garbage trucks. So these two units typically have high maintenance needs. Just to give you an idea, I think we spent somewhere around $70,000 in parts and labor on the vehicles in the last year. So they are very, very high maintenance. They are both in need of replacement. These particular trucks, just to give you an idea, they're sister vehicles kind of thing. So if a radiator goes in one of them, within a week, the radiator will go in the other one. So it's been challenging for us, just this particular trucks, in particular, I guess. But yes, it's our recommendation that they both be replaced.
Councillor Elliott?
So is there a bulk purchase advantage to doing them together? Because if we continue to replace them at the same time, won't we continue to have the same problem that you've just outlined?
Through the chair, definitely they're the most hardest working vehicles in the fleet, and they take the most work, I guess. But those particular ones, I think, if these ones are retired, we'll keep one of them around as a backup. Pardon me, so that we're able to have a spare for service. Really the key for us is when these things are down, it's a huge scramble to keep providing service. So sunset these two vehicles, we'll likely keep one in a spare capacity so that we don't have service issues.
Councillor Councillor Plum.
Thank you, through the chair. Just a question that's come up from the public, and I'm kind of curious too, because I don't know the answer. And that is, on my street, when you put your bin out for garbage, early in the morning, you see a small truck come up the road and go back down the road without stopping, and then you see the bigger truck follow behind it. What is the purpose of that small truck duplicating that route?
Thank you, through the chair. So you likely won't see that small truck after March. That small truck at the moment is collecting compost and compost only.
It's what? Compost?
Yes, the small truck typically does compost.
There's no composting on my street. But why is it going up and down?
Sorry, through the chair, I can't answer that. If they're not collecting anything, then maybe they shouldn't be there.
Someone was giving me an explanation that perhaps.
Point of order.
It's not to do with this.
I think this is an important question for this member of our public.
Please. So when there is a point of order called for, the chair asks the councillor who made the point of order to explain why she thinks is a point of order. And then the chair will decide how to proceed. So, Councillor Isaacson, why did you call a point of order?
We're focusing on item 15 right now, and that's not the direction that Councillor Palm is going. It's not that I don't think that your issue is important, but it's not a budget conversation on this item.
Okay.
If I may explain through the chair.
Councillor Palm, what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask staff to respond to you with regard to yours. Okay. With regard to items 15 and 16, yes, Councillor Isaacson.
It's okay. I know you mean me. So I would be inclined to make a motion to defer one of these to a little bit later, and if I don't, and I'm not sure which one would be the ideal one to defer if it sounds like they're both in the same condition. So if staff had a preference for deferring one or the other, I would take that input. Otherwise, I would just choose one.
Staff?
Through the chair, they're roughly the same. Yeah, so if the the motion is to defer one, we would just defer one kind of thing, but the recommendation would be both.
Okay, Councillor Elliott, do you want to make your motion?
I guess it's to, so I want to, the motions are a little bit inflexible, and I'm not entirely sure which one I want to use. I want to defer the year in which one is purchased. So I don't know if that means removing it or deferring it. Can you help me with that?
Through the chair, the option to defer to 2025 gives you a year.
Perfect, thank you. I move that staff be directed to defer item number 15 to 2025 as presented in the appendix. If I get a second, I will explain why. I believe if we replace one of them this year and keep all of them, we then have backups for the existing older vehicles, because one can back up the other, and we can then defer having all of it spent in 1 year, which could help us spread out our expenses a little bit. And so that's why I think that I want to make this motion.
So Amita.
Yeah, I would, thank you, Chair. I would concur with Councillor Elliott. I would really like to see us stretch it out to 2026, but I'm open to having that conversation next year to revisit it. And based on Ms. Dennison's previous thing, that's about a 2% impact on taxpayer dollars, I think, or 2%, I think, roughly. Oh, maybe I'm miscalculating here.
Through the chair, just to clarify, because we have been wrapping up operational savings do impact property tax generally. But when it comes to capital, if we defer, it doesn't necessarily impact our property tax because our capital is reserve funded.
Yes,
but it's not, but there is still a benefit. It's helpful for cash flow and other purposes as well. So it's not that there's no benefit, but I just wanted to be sure to not commit to a 2% decrease. But it is helpful because the reserves get funded, a little bit each year. And so if things are too grouped together, it becomes difficult. So there's certainly still a benefit to consider for shifting and deferring. Thank you.
Councillor Doubt.
I'm opposed to the recommendation to defer, and the reason is we have expert people in charge of our fleet looking at it. We've got the advice that both of these trucks should be replaced. The cost of not replacing them is probably somewhere between, not replacing one of them, is probably somewhere between the $70,000 at the historical cost of maintenance and $100,000 because one of the trucks will be a year older at least now, maybe 2 years older sometime. So I think we should go ahead. The money is in reserves to be spent, and I think it should be done. When we've got advice from staff that they think this is the wise thing we should do, I think we should follow it.
Councillor Southcott.
Thank you, Worship. I agree with Councillor Doubt. $70,000 is a lot of parts to replace. I was in the repair business, and what that means is significant unreliability of the trucks. I was thinking of supporting this resolution. However, it also occurs to me that since the schedules are about to change this year, that means these trucks will be used less, and that indicates or suggests to me that there will be savings in future years, because if you're not using the trucks as much, then they're going to wear out slower. So I think that it would be, I think that it would be bad both for the people doing the maintenance, operations, and the community to not go for both of these trucks this year. Thank you.
Okay, we have Councillor Palm.
Question of clarification. How old are the two trucks?
2017.
Through the chair, they're 7 years old each.
And the other question is, can you please give us an explanation of how bad a shape these vehicles are. Why it's, I need that.
Sure, through the chair. So just to give you an idea, in the last year, we did some frame repairs to the chassis of both the vehicles. We found a crack in one of them. It turned out to be 2 cracks in the frame. So of course we repaired that, and we found on the other one that there was similar cracks. So that was about 60 hours of labor for each one of those to repair. And the trucks are in the shop at least every week, each of them. They're a high maintenance item, and they take up a lot of our time. There's just some scrambles behind the scenes to make service happen on the street when one of the trucks are down. Last year as well, we had to rent a truck, and they're not cheap. They're around $10,000 a month, but we had no choice, just because one of our trucks was down, and the parts were just so hard to find that we had to rent a truck just to keep service going.
Just to clarify, Councillor Southcott's question as well, because we're going to be switching to 2 every second week pickup of garbage. Will these trucks also be used for organics or just that garbage pickup?
So we'll have 3 streams. The workload doesn't, we're shifting the workload around is what we're doing. The workload is roughly the same. So what we're going to do in March is move from garbage weekly to bi-weekly, and obviously we're inserting weekly compost. So really with the pilot program, the workload itself is roughly the same. So the trucks will work roughly the same amount of work.
I like garbage to get conversation going. Councillor Elliott.
Okay, thank you, Your Worship. So one of the intentions behind the motion is for us to get in a cycle in the future where we're a little bit more staggered with how we replace our vehicles. And also, I do believe we invest our reserves when we're not using them. And so there is some return on that $500,000 during that year that helps offset some of that maintenance cost. And I get that they both need to be replaced. And my idea might be to use 2 of the older ones to do the job of 1 truck and have 1 truck do the job. And I don't know if that impacts the sale of it, like were we counting on revenue from one of those trucks or not, and that would also be delayed. But I think it's good and prudent to in the future not have replacement of all of our vehicles on the same year, and I think that's what I was trying to help us get toward. So
We have a motion on the floor. Yes.
Through the chair, it does need to be seconded.
We will continue. We have a motion on the floor. All in favor? Opposed? The motion is defeated. We will now move to item 17, which is the lift station upgrades, which is 45% completed. I see a consensus that we will proceed on. All right, we will now move to item 18, which is the Western Star Tandem Axle Dump, which, yes, Councillor Isaacson.
Thank you, Mayor Wesno. To maybe save us some time, there are a lot of vehicles on this list, and there are some priority areas that were listed based on your previous rationale to replace the garbage trucks. I'm assuming that the rationale to replace the remainder of these is the same. And so I'm wondering, to save us some time when we get to a vehicle, I don't know if we need to discuss every one, or I might ask staff if there are any ones in particular that
could wait.
that could be delayed or are worse than others, looking to the chair and to staff to see if that might be a way to speed us up a little bit, because we have quite a few vehicles on our list.
To the CAO?
Through the chair, I'm going to ask Mr. Fraser and his team to respond because they are the experts. Thank you.
Through the chair, we've taken the time to put a priority rating by the vehicles. So typically, if it's a number one, that would be imminent. We're recommending. If it's a priority 2 and 3, typically it would be bumped to a different year, 25, 26, 27, or 28 kind of thing. So the rationale is the number ones are typically the ones that we feel are imminent.
So do Councillor Isaacs.
So then I might move that we skip over the priority 1 vehicles, the vehicles that are listed in the priority ranking 1 under the info/ops category. And I can list those numbers if council wishes.
Great. Please read the numbers.
Read the numbers. Okay, so this is number 18. We already talked about number 22. The 22, 26, 27, 32, 34, 35, 41, 44, 45, 'Think that's it for vehicles in priority ranking 1.
Any further discussion on this? Councillor Palm.
Yeah, I'm going to ask staff for clarification. Having considered how many vehicles we're replacing and how many that are up for replacement in the future, we have a lot of vehicles. And I hope council will allow me to approach this topic, and that is, presently, I understand that a lot of our vehicles are being driven home by employees and to and from work. That fuel cost adds up over the course of a year. And I would like to make a motion that only the supervisory staff that are available for call out use those vehicles on a regular basis to and from work so that they have that vehicle ready for call out, and limit the amount of to and from employee transport that we're presently providing. Because it's a great cost, it is very costly, and it's some way, even though we're providing all of these 12 new vehicles this year, somehow reducing the cost of our overall vehicle fleet.
Councillor Palm, I'll ask if there's a seconder for the motion. Seconder, please continue.
Seconder, yeah.
Yes, yes.
Sorry, Chair, there's already a motion on the floor to skip the numbers that Councillor Isaacson had.
First motion, then.
So if we can.
Sorry, I thought that given that no action was required, there was no need for the motion because we either defer it, reject it. But we're not doing either of those two.
Correct. There isn't a need for the motion. It was phrased as a motion, so I thought a motion was being made. It's up to you how you want to go about it.
I phrased it as a motion as Councillor Elliott did her skipping. So that's why I did it. Just wanted us to agree to skip a bunch altogether.
You can do unanimous consent as well.
That can be done by unanimous.
Motion's on the floor now, so we have to address it.
We have a seconder for the motion. All in favor? Passed unanimous. So,
We're voting on the motion to skip numbers, right?
Skip.
good. All right, now where are we? over.
I believe Councillor Palm, you wanted to move your motion?
That in terms of the vehicle fleet, we limit the usage of employee to and from work transport and provide that transportation only to supervisory callouts staff.
CAO comment, please.
Through the chair, and thank you for raising this. This is a practice that I believe is already happening, but I appreciate the motion because it helps us reinforce that practice, Councillor Palm. Thank you.
We have the motion. It's been seconded.
Was there a seconder?
I believe there was. Councillor Elliott, I believe.
Just bringing it forward.
Councillor Dout.
Yeah, so, you know, it's nice to have these motions pop up in the middle of a long agenda, and it's worth considering, but I don't like having motions come up with no notice and no information, factual or otherwise, to back them up. So I'm going to move that we postpone discussion on this motion to a future council meeting when we can get a factual report and deal with the issue. It's outside of the budget discussion we're having right now.
So we have a motion on the floor, which has been seconded, and Councillor Dowd has suggested an alternative motion. How do we proceed?
I've made a motion to defer.
Yeah, so Councillor Doubt can move to postpone the motion that's on the floor to a future meeting. So we can do that, and then it just kind of pauses the motion.
Do we have a seconder? Councillor Southcott. Any further discussion?
I don't think we debate these ones. We just vote.
This is not an amendment. What this is what this is a motion to defer the motion that you put forward to a council meeting. So, yeah, all in favor of the motion? Opposed? All in favor? Unanimous. Thank you. We will now move to 19, which is a development permit landscape security deposit. Councillor Isaac.
I don't know what this is, so I'd like a bit of a description.
Anybody know?
Through the chair to Councillor Isaacson. So this is money that was set aside at the time the wastewater treatment facility was constructed to ensure that landscaping was installed. Being that the project is complete, I would see no reason why that money couldn't be returned.
I see consensus that we leave this where it is. All right, we'll move now to
21.
21 is a John Deere. Well, this is also replaces unit 524. Discussions?
We agreed to skip those.
I'll explain. I didn't skip the
Factor.
the rec complex, the Parks Recreation ones. I just asked us to skip the info ops ones. And so I'm presuming the same rationale might be true for Parks Rec and Culture, but I wanted to hear from Parks Rec staff about the importance. Again, can these be delayed? How in bad of shape are they?
Through the chair, interestingly enough, Rod manages, Mr. Fraser manages our fleet of vehicles through the works yard as well. So he has done the exact same analysis and prioritization for all the PRC ones.
Thank you.
Councillor Muda.
I'm not opposed to leaving it as is, but I am curious, I guess, with a couple of the conferences that I was able to attend last year. Not electric, we'll call them the Roomba of lawn mowing, is becoming a lot more commercial as well. So I'm just curious, we have a lot of parks and a lot of labor that requires to manage them. Is that something we can explore as a community down the road to help with labor and have, I know it requires more machinery to keep at each facility, but I'll let you speak on that.
Thank you, through the chair. And I'll just comment on this. The tractor unit is a multi-use unit, so it would flail, mow, and then it also has a ornamental attachment that would go on the front, and that attachment you'll see later in the capital budget. And then there's a pull behind piece for rough terrain mowing, say up at the airport. You'll see that later in the budget. This is just the tractor piece. So if there are electric options out there, we certainly do look at them, and we weigh them against. We kind of do that business case over the life of the machine and what the benefit of it is for us. We haven't seen 100% value so far in the mowing parts. Where we do see that value with fleet is pickup trucks and cars. That electric is fiscally responsible, I'll say, and we can go that route. So it makes sense for us to purchase electric cars and pickup trucks only, not the big stuff. That's just not there yet. But we do explore those technologies as they come.
Thank you.
Okay. I see no further questions, so the consensus there is we will move that forward, and we'll move to 24, which is protective SOMs. Yeah. Which is 31% expended to date. Any further questions? Seeing none, we will move forward to a lower city heat pump. 25. Any further discussions? Seeing none, we'll move forward to number 28, which is the salt sheds at the work yards, and that's 6% roughly expended to date. Any further clarification? Seeing none, we'll move to fire hydrant upgrades. Any questions? No questions. We'll go to the pressure reducing valve upgrades. Yes, Councillor Isaacson.
Is this related, through the chair, is this related to the wastewater treatment plant or our water mains?
Through the chair, this is related to water. The pressure reducing valves serve to equalize pressure, water pressure in our system, just because of the drastic hill that we're all living on, and it just keeps those zones, we call them, at certain pressures, rather than get too much pressure.
Thank you.
No further questions. We'll move to 31, which is a pallet jack. No questions on the pallet jack. We'll move to 33, which is a unit for HR module. Right. Yes.
I'd like to know about it.
Yes.
Through the chair, this is in the accounting software. This is a module that will allow scheduling across the city. So currently the managers and supervisors and directors are using Microsoft Outlook calendars and paper time off requests. Whereas with this module implementation, we would be able to have vacation requests go electronically. And once they're approved, it would then directly feed to the electronic timesheet that we're working on right now and code that time accordingly. And then there's an audit history on time off approvals. And so this is greatly needed operationally and funded by the COVID-19 reserve, which is a little restricted in what we can use that reserve for, but one of the items is electronic upgrades, especially as they facilitate efficiencies. So that's the history on this particular item.
No further questions. We move to 36, which is the SCBA replacement. 3 years, 25,000.
Safety.
What is it? Okay.
It's an acronym.
The chair to council, this is our self-contained breathing apparatus, excuse me, replacement plan. One side note to this is the packs themselves have gone up about 30%. We're currently looking at close to $10,000 for each pack. So it'll be an additional item on future budgets because of the increased cost, but it is for our self-contained breathing apparatus.
No further questions. We'll move to a gang mower. I'm assuming that this is parks. Any questions? No questions. Move to the complex. Room asbestos abatement and reflooring. So Isaacs.
Yeah, one question. I know, is this only asbestos floor tiles that are the issue? Because asbestos generally, if not disturbed, is fine. And so I'm wondering if there's actually parts that are being disturbed that we need to address, or if it's just the flooring tiles. Both.
Through the chair, this is a recent development in our rehearsal room at the complex. The floor tiles are starting to be disturbed. We've recently had an abatement company come in and check. They're non-friable or fine right now and covered with duct tape as per regulation, but they won't be for long.
Thank you.
Sir Almeida.
Thank you. I was just curious, timeline-wise, when are we expecting the project completed?
Through the chair, because this has been so recent, we haven't even had a chance to get a proper quote. If we get confirmation that we can go ahead with this, we would start with the quotation and project planning.
No further questions. Move to 39, which I see is 68% for the unit for electronic timesheets. Any discussion? Seeing none. We'll move to 40, which is the ProFlex rotary mower replacement. I assume that's parks also. Yes. Any questions? Move to the RCMP building entrance upgrade, which is number 42. No questions. We'll move to the main pool sand filters 1 and 2. No questions. We will move to 46, which is generators City Hall 2022. See no questions. We will flip our pages. Number 47, new library upper stucco rain screen. Do you know? Yes, Councillor Almeida.
Just some context, I guess.
Through the chair, sorry, could you repeat your question?
I'm not familiar with what a upper stucco rain screen is, so I'm sure it's important.
I'm going to call a friend through the chair.
Thank you. My understanding through the chair is that, there have been some failures identified with just that, the stucco, some stucco portions of the Crossroads Village building. So this is for repair replacement.
I guess a follow-up, I've heard recently that, or there was a situation of a part of the exterior that detached from the wall at the library. And I know we've protected it to keep the community safe. Is that going to be a further cost down the road?
Through the chair, we've had some very recent discussions. It may well be added to exactly what we're talking about and maybe go out as one project.
Councillor Isaacs.
Yeah, follow-up question. I know the library building and the improvements made to it were quite new. Is there any warranty through, and was it installed? Is there warranty to go back on, or was it part of the existing building that we can go to?
Through the chair, we have researched this. That was one of our first steps to see what we could, and the timing has passed for us to pursue that option. Thank you.
No further questions. We'll move to my favorite subject. There's a horseshoe pitcher, and I'm interested, where are we going to relocate? I assume that this is the rec center horseshoe pit?
Through the chair, yes, this is the rec center horseshoe pitch. It's the issue has been raised to us that there is an ongoing safety concern with the location right beside the ammonia ice plant exhaust. There was a minor incident a couple of years ago, and there's been notes in files that signify it would be a good idea to move. We've decided that through coordination with fire services over the last year and input from some of our technical safety BC reps, that it would be in the best interest to move this horseshoe pitch away from our ammonia plant exhaust. And if we get approval moving forward, we would begin consultation with the Horseshoe Club to determine an appropriate location. The funds that we're looking at setting aside may likely be a temporary relocation until such time we've got a grander official community plan or recreation plan.
Okay. See no further discussions. We will move to a tank replacement. See no discussions. We'll move to an item that I'm sure we'll have discussion on, North Harbour boat launch concrete replacement. Councillor Isaacs.
Thank you, Mayor Wasno. I know that there are issues generally with the grade of the boat launch and at what tides it can be used. I'm wondering if this will help ameliorate that, or if that's just to resurface. What concrete are we talking about?
Thank you through the chair. So this is the North Harbour boat launch. It's the concrete piece in and around the high tide level. So it's that piece. So it's a remove and replace of that concrete. So I think the grade would stay roughly the same.
See no further questions. We'll move to the complex cold water line replacement. So discussion, we'll move to Unit 4 AP EFT invoice register. That's finance. Any questions for finance?
What is this?
Through the chair, this will be very welcomed modernization project. So we currently pay our vendors through check, and upgrading our software will allow us to pay through EFT. And it also allows us to register our invoices so that we don't have invoices being having to be transported from the rec center and all of our facilities here, and we don't end up with duplicate invoices. So it's an efficiency and an increase in service.
And some cost savings I get too.
Through the chair, yes, it could offset some part-time hours.
No further discussion. We'll move to 53. This is sewage inspection camera. No need to pursue this further. We will move to 55, which is a SCADA improvements wireless. This is.
If we could just have the acronym explained.
Through the chair, I was hoping you weren't going to ask that. I think it's supervisory control and data acquisition.
Okay.
And basically control systems within the water system. So basically our Haslam Reservoir communicating with different parts of the system, and Aspen Booster, and as well as the Wildwood system.
Councillor Pond.
No, Councillor Dowd.
Councillor Duff.
We're on the same team, but
You got the same hair. Oh, sorry.
no, Councillor Palm's had a more recent haircut than I have. No, I think what we're talking about is a interconnection system, usually a fiber optic system between the various pumping stations on the wastewater treatment plant so that they can coordinate themselves. Is that right?
For the drinking water.
Yeah, through the chair, there's actually two. So one SCADA system is for the water, and the next one, number 55, is for the sewer.
Thank
you. Anita.
I'm sorry, I might have jumped the gun. I'm not opposed to this. I was actually going to propose we, considering the size of the rest of all the priority rank number 1 options, that we, if there's no opposition, we just move to priority rank number 2 and jump to 66 if nobody opposes.
If I understand, we'd be moving to 66.
Yeah. Since no motion was required, I just proposed it instead.
It's consent.
Yes. Do I see a unanimous consent? I see unanimous consent. So we will now move to the 2 items. Ranking number 66. And actually, at this time, I'm going to call a 5-minute break. Okay, if we could move back to our seats. Okay, we're going to continue. We're now moving into the number 66, which has to do with the Airway Runway Extension Phase 1, which we have grants and reserves. Any discussion on this item? Yes, Councillor Elliott.
So I'm assuming it was prioritized. I know it's a critical piece in the overall project for the runway. I know that it's mostly funded by grants, but it was put in priority 2. Is that because staff thought we could delay it, or I don't think we can get rid of it. I think we have to do it, but I'm just curious about what was behind the priority number 2 and whether they thought maybe we could just delay a little bit, or whether we would lose our grant if we did that. Curious about that.
Thank you, through the chair. This really relates to the landfill part at the east end of the runway. It's a slow ongoing process. There's a closure plan in front of MOE right now. No clear idea when we're going to be hearing back. So it's kind of, we don't want to lose things obviously in this side of it, but it may not be happening in 2024, more likely 2025.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Further discussion? Okay, we'll move. Now I've got a little confusion on my list here. Have we dealt with 67? No. Okay, 67 is a mid-level connector, which we have 2% spent. Councillor Palm.
Thank you. Through the chair, mid-level connector. I thought it was a good idea when it was first proposed because it links the Westview to the town site and all the rest. But when you look at the cost, which is 50% grant funding, but the other 50%, which is close to 450,000, comes from I'm not sure where. But when I talked to staff in regards to the mid-level connector, our biggest problem is this is being proposed as a basic, not just your simple little sidewalk. This is a major 12-foot wide pathway. And it's expensive. And the maintenance of that duration of track along that pole line, when you talk to our park staff, they're saying, who's going to look after it? Because we haven't got the resources. We don't have the manpower. We can barely keep up with cutting grass. So I don't know if this is really a good idea, since we've got bike paths on our roads that go from Westview to the town site. We've got other upgrades happening on the highway for our resource center. I just don't see this as, I'm glad it's a number 2, but I think it should be a number 3 for the cost. Defer it down the road and then take another look at it later on. And in terms of finances and where they all wash out. But right now, this is certainly, for me, not a priority.
Councillor Isaacs.
Thank you, Mayor Wesno. I see there's 2% spent as of September or so. I'm wondering if you could, if staff could report back on maybe where we are at now in spending and where we're at in the tendering or contracting process for this one.
Through the chair to Councillor Isaacson, yes, I can speak to the project where it's at. I'd also like to just touch on the funding sources. So just to make clear, it is actually federal, provincial, and community forest grant funding that is behind this particular project. In terms of the 2%, so the design drawings are at a 90% complete stage right now. We're expecting the 100% complete. So based on when those invoices would have come in, we're actually going to be closer to date to somewhere in the range of $50,000. So much more than 50% in terms of the overall budget, but still at a nearing completion on the design drawings, looking to tender the project shortly thereafter.
Thank you. Yeah, this is not a priority 2 for me. This is a very important priority in terms of connecting Westview and Townsite with accessible and active transit options, including for students getting to school from Westview, and a much more accessible option between the two communities than exists currently. I'm actually really excited, and the questions that I get are, when is it going to be done? So this would be a skip for me.
Councillor Southcott. Actually, Councillor Doe was before me, Your Worship.
If you don't mind, I've got, this is actually much more than a connector between Townsite and Westview. The Sunshine Coast Tourism Group has done a study of off-highway alternative transportation routes available and planned between the Langdale Ferry Terminal and Lund. And they just came out with this report that I received through the regional district last week. And it has the whole route mapped up and planned. The first priority they have on their list for this alternative transportation route is the piece through Powell River, which is funded by federal and provincial grant money and would be the mid-level connector, connecting that would be part of that, hopefully totally connected route at some time. So this is it's not a small local neighborhood plan that we're talking about. We're talking about something that is connecting alternative transport, which is bicycles, walking, all kinds of different transportation modes that can get people out of their cars and off the highway, and having that hopefully divided from the highway all the way from Langdale to Lund, which would make life a lot safer for all those people that like to use bicycles. That's for sure. So I think it's more than what it looks like, and I'm in favor of keeping it on there. Mostly because the money's coming from other people, not us.
So Southcott.
Thank you, Worship. The only thing I might add is that though past planning in previous years was to try to find a parallel path to the cut and the highway, this is the alternative to that, very adequate alternative, and not the Willingdon Beach Trail. So it's very specifically designed to cover that route. Thank you.
Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, Your Worship. I would also be in favor of leaving it in the plan. I had a question about the grants, whether there's a deadline for completion of the project. Most grants have that. And if I may.
Through the chair to Councillor Elliott, yes, there is a grant deadline. The actual date eludes me, but it's later in 2025.
Okay, thank you. And so I also wanted to point out that the accessible connector route also alleviates pressure to upgrade bike trails that would allow bikers and other types of vehicles to safely ride on roads, which we don't really have the road width to do a good job of. And upgrading our actual roads is way, way more expensive and requires a higher grade. And so if we can provide fully accessible, which the road ones don't, pathways for electric bikes, people with wheelchairs, all of that's separate from the roadway, the long-term benefit is that we may not have to upgrade some of our roads to include accessible transport ways, because people can use that one instead. And so it is a struggle between Westview and Townsite. This will alleviate all of the struggles people are having to get there without a car. It's safer for everybody. Most of the other routes are quite dangerous. I don't want my kids on them, and I wouldn't mind my kids on this one. So I'm gonna say I'm in favor of leaving it there.
Okay, Councillor Palm.
Yes, through the chair, I just wanted to point out, I said defer and move this down the road a little bit, even though the consulting part of the project is done. The construction of that pathway is bulk of the cost. Maintenance will be another cost, which we will be facing down the road. And I can say quite honestly, from someone that worked at Brooks High School for over 30 years, I use the pole line to ride my mountain bike to work regularly. It already exists. So to me, again, in terms of finances, this is not a high priority and it can be deferred to a later date. It's not essential. Just a point.
So in order to proceed with this, it might help Councillor Palm if you actually made the motion to defer and then we can vote on that. Or you can just let it go and it will stay.
Well, I can hear what council's saying, so I'm not going to bother making that motion unless one of them wants to change their mind.
Okay, seeing no changed minds, we will move to the complex public washroom and arena accessibility. Yes, Councillor Isaacs.
Yeah, just a question about if there's any comma placement in this. Is this about accessibility of public washrooms and the arena overall, or is it to improve the public washroom and the arena accessibility? So where does the accessibility apply?
Through the chair, accessibility applies to all.
Okay. Fantastic. I was at the accessibility committee meeting this morning, and I think this is a priority for them, and yeah, support skipping it.
Seeing no other discussion, we'll move to Tempest Prosperio upgrade.
We already canceled that one, sir. 16, we're up at
9, we already did that.
and 70 as well, so we'll be 71 next.
69, 70, and 71.
Timberlane track.
Sorry.
I think we're on Timberlane track refurbish.
Active number 72, active transportation grants.
71.
I think we went by 71.
Which is okay with me, but
So 71 is the Timberlane track refurbish. Councillor Isaacs.
Yeah, a question about immediate need for this. I don't actually know the age of Timberlane track, and I'm not an active user on it, so I don't know the state of it. So I'm looking for rationale as to why this might be a priority too, and could it be deferred for a year?
Through the chair, it could be deferred for sure. The track is currently delaminating and has been fixed in a few places. We foresee this getting worse rather than better, and we need to address it before there's a safety concern, but we could likely push it off for a little while.
So Armida.
I'm just curious, I guess, the expected life expectancy of the original track. Did we meet that life expectancy, and what would be the expectancy of a future upgrade?
Through the chair, the track, the life expectancy of the track itself is not failing, and it is meeting its requirements. It's the delamination from the ground, and that was unexpected and not sure why that's happening. And when it does come apart, it starts moving and slipping, and when it starts moving and slipping, it starts tearing. If it was still glued properly to the ground, we wouldn't have a problem with the top of the track.
Palm.
Yes, Mr. Chair, that type of condition becomes a quick liability issue with the amount of traffic that we have on that track from below it, from our high school, and there's people on their track. It's a community asset. It was put in 14 years ago when I first arrived on council. We had to move the existing track from Westview over to Timberlane. And so I think the lifespan on a track is roughly around 10 years, similar to the turf field that went into Brooks that was replaced just about a year ago now. And that was put in after the track. So this is due. And I see that this is coming out of a reserve, and I would imagine that is either our reserves or community forest.
Councillor Elliott.
So I have a question. If we do this job sooner rather than later, do we get to reuse a lot of the material, or is the process of lifting it in order to refurbish it going to mean we need all new materials anyways?
Through the chair, I do not know that. I have a tough time imagining that we'd be able to reuse it though.
Thank you.
I'd like to comment that I don't think I have ever driven past the track in 14 years, regardless of the day or night, that there hasn't been cars and people out there using it. So I understand the importance of this, and it would just take one accident and it would be unfortunate. So I'm certainly in favor of staff's. Yes, Councillor Almeida.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm not opposed to the work being done. I'm curious, I guess, considering we're probably not in line to host any major international track and field competitions beyond our regional boundaries. Does it make sense to go to an asphalt only track versus a whatever material is currently on the track now?
Councillor Pond.
Yeah, just for Councillor Almeida's information, the present surface is the regular surfacing of a track for regular meets, and we host school meets on that track on an annual basis.
Oh, I understand, yeah, but I also went to high school with a asphalt track that we ran the entire city's track and field program in Toronto, so asphalt can work when you're doing regular school competitions. We're not hosting any major events on our track as far as I'm aware.
When I was on council way back when, Your Worship, and there was a member of the public advocating for an asphalt surface, and the public was, and the users of that track from the track club were not welcome to see that coming forward, because they like a track that's going to be safe and sound when people are running on it regularly, because you can injure yourself quite easily while you're training on an asphalt surface.
Okay, we've got a fulsome discussion here. I would ask if somebody wishes to make a motion. If not, we will move on. Great, we'll move on to the active transportation grants matching funds number 72. We have an explanation.
Through the chair, yes, I can explain this fund. These are funds that come from community forest. The fund was intended to provide the city funds that when a grant application comes forward for active transportation, that we had the ability to act quickly without coming forward for a budget amendment when the fund itself, or sorry, where the grant required matching funds.
Thank you. Councillor Elliott.
So it's being put in reserves and there's no project attached to it at this time, and it's kind of just sitting in reserves. Is that correct?
Through the chair, it was initially to be used for the mid-level connector. Then additional funds were found for the mid-level connector. It does provide great opportunity, because often these grant funds come out with a month to respond, and you have to have matching funds in place. So to answer your question, yes, it is currently sitting there looking for an active transportation project, waiting for the next round of grants to come forward from perhaps the BC Active Transportation Fund.
Thank you.
Okay. Seeing no further discussion, we will move to 73, which is a replacing of a front-end loader. Yes, Councillor Isaac.
Thank you, Mayor Isaacson. Always questions about the vehicles. So now we're into round two. And I'm wondering, when we look at our 5-year plan, so many of the vehicles are in year one, and they're not necessarily distributed over 5 years. And so I'm wondering, are all the vehicles in our fleet that need replacement in the next 5 years listed here? And then because some of them are listed at priority 2, is it possible to spread them out a bit more over 5 years? Because so many of them are in year.
This one's year 3.
In year 1. So like this one, for example, is in year 3. And I, again, maybe want to save us time by looking at all the vehicles together, but want to hear from staff on like maybe why there's so many that may need replacement this year compared to ones spread out the other years.
Through the chair, there's a couple thoughts there. One of the thoughts for just how many vehicles for 2024 is you're seeing actually ones that from 2023 and 2022 as well. So you're seeing a stacked effect. Just ones that weren't able to get to, or some of them ones were actually on order, or there's one that's supposed to be delivered this month, allegedly, that sort of thing. So that's mostly for that. The reasoning behind that. For these priority 2 ones, typically they wouldn't be in 2024, and they're more pushed out to 2025 to 2028. And we do evaluate them with the mechanics as well. So we looked at the truck, and typically it's around that 15-year mark. Some of them are older. They'll be 20 years old in there as well. We do have a lot of problems with getting parts for the pickup truck type vehicles that are 20 years old. There's, a matter of fact, I think we have one in the shop right now that is 20 years old, and it is, we're just having, we can't find the parts to make it run anymore, kind of thing. So yeah, the priority 2s are spread out quite a bit more.
Okay. Notice that we have items 77, 78, 79, 82, 83, 84, 85, 87. They're all placement of vehicles. Is there a consensus that we can deal with these all at the same time? On to another issue? Councillor
I
Isaac.
just have one procedural question. So all of the ones that you mentioned are not for 2024, they're for future years. And so does it, if we just skip over them, will council, does that mean that council won't kind of have them in front of us in future budget deliberations, or should we be deferring? I guess they're always on the table, but I just want to make sure that we're not just saying, don't need to look at these ever again.
That's the CFO.
Through the chair, if I understand the question correctly, we do actually do a 10-year capital plan. We just showed the 5 years, so the items won't be dropped. And through our asset management software, we have all of our assets and you know when they're due to be replaced. So it won't get missed if it gets deferred.
So my question isn't that they'll get missed by staff, but that they'll get missed for us for discussion. Like if we don't,
okay,
we so procedurally, if we just skip these, we don't make any motions. Will these ever be on the table for discussion for council?
Yes, through the chair next year. Yes.
So Southcott.
Thank you, Richard. Just a question for information. The budgeted amounts seem to be like kind of double what I would expect to pay for some of the items like pickup trucks. Do they include maintenance and like, is this life cycle thinking or what's?
Through the chair, so
I bought a new vehicle for a long time.
Yeah, couple things through the chair. We've noticed vehicle pricing has increased. You may have noticed it yourself. So vehicle prices have increased quite a bit over the last few years. So that obviously, but that alone isn't the numbers you're seeing. So some of them are specialized vehicles. So what they'll have is a cab unit or a special work body attached for with it for tools. Some of the trucks have mountable cranes on them for lifting pumps and things out of lift stations and whatnot.
No further discussion. We will move to item number 80, which is the pipe.
74.
Sorry?
74.
74.
74. All right. 74 is the window replacement at the complex. Councillor Almeida.
I'm gonna take a wild assumption here that since there's a grant covering 2/3 of this and their windows, there's probably gonna be a heat or some sort of cost benefit savings for other than just aesthetics.
Through the chair, that's my assumption as well, yes.
No further discussion. We'll move to, I believe, item 80.
76.
86, Recreation Complex Roof, Theater 6. Questions for staff?
What is theater 6? I thought we only had one theater.
Through the chair, I think that's a remnant of some previous inputs, and I believe it is just the theater.
So then a follow-up question, what is wrong with the roof that it needs fixing up to the tune of $200,000?
Through the chair, we've got a series of ongoing leaks that we've been able to manage, and Civic Properties have done a wonderful job. But we're at the point where we need to do some more thorough repairs.
Okay, Councillor Pond.
Just to clarify, those funds come out of either a maintenance or building reserve, correct?
Through the chair, that is correct. The infrastructure and building reserve.
No further discussion. I think I've got finally the number correct, which is number 80.
Yep.
And it's the Public Library Roof Solar Array, which we're at least 12% into.
I wasn't aware we had solar on the public library roof. Can someone just explain, like, if we have them, how old they are, why were we replacing them, or are we just adding them, or how's that? What's that about?
Through the chair to Councillor Elliott, this is it's solar panels that would be added to the library roof. This is a project or initiative that was supported by Community Forest and just been taking a while to get up and running due to considerations around structural, as well as just getting the engineering correct. But yes, it is a project to install solar panels on the library roof.
Oh, thank you.
Your worship, just to refresh my memory, when was this okayed by council?
This was supported by council a number of years ago, but through Community Forest. It was a Community Forest grant.
Okay, seeing no further discussion, we'll move to 81, which is a priority hardware upgrades, and that's financial. Any questions for finance?
Or have we done already?
No questions. Okay. 86, no? Yep, 86 is the Marine Avenue curb extensions, which is at least 13% completed. Any questions? Seeing none.
I have a quick question, Your Worship. So for this project, we're on Marine Avenue, which is owned by the province, and I think the curb extensions are absolutely needed. It's high time we did that. I just wondered if we negotiated with the province at all and whether they are helping at all with any of that.
Through the chair to Councillor Elliott, we have definitely been working with the province, and we have a permit to operate or to develop a curb extension at the crosswalk near the Remax store. in terms of contribution from the ministry, there has been none.
Thank you.
You can now flip, please. To 88, which is the Crosswalk Alberni, Ontario, and Larry Guthrie Park. Yes, Councillor Almeida.
And just a question to staff on this one, because I remember sitting in chambers almost a year and a half ago or so, where a previous council approved these two crosswalks. And then last year, Director Bertig had confirmed that they'd be taking place in the summer of 2023. So I'm just curious status and what happened.
Through the chair, I can answer that as best I can. So this is still in progress. The Alberni crosswalk was completed and it's in operation at this time. The remaining one is the crosswalk at Larry Guthrie Park. I believe the next step is, I believe they're working on just the actual location itself. It's a bit tricky, just with the parking. It tends to get used a lot with the different sports events there. So they are working on just dialing in where the actual crosswalk location will be.
Thank you.
No further discussion. We'll move to 89, which is the town site heritage style lamp flag posts. Councilor Almeida.
And I think just for clarity and public knowledge, I believe in a conversation I had with one of the town site residents behind this project that this is a community forest funded project, I think.
Through the chair, yes, that is correct.
No further discussion. Move to complex arena rink doors. Yes.
I guess I would be curious about this because I'm there 4 or 5 days a week. I haven't noticed any doors not really working except when it was freezing cold. So I'd be curious about this one.
Through the chair, there's a number of doors that we've had some break-ins over the years. Last November, December, we had about 2 or 3. Some are beyond repair. We're patching them up. There's a series of doors along the arena side that need to be remained closed at all times for safety reasons, for ammonia release. Contrary to what a lot of us believe is that we need to exit, we actually need to stay in. Some of these doors are not capable of doing it properly. So we from a safety perspective, we will need to do it. It's just a matter of when, and it is priority 2, not a 1.
It's not the doors most commonly used by patrons. Thank you.
Okay. Further questions, comments? We'll move to number 91, which is the forklift, which replaces a previous unit. Yes.
I'm going to suggest, Mayor, that we can skip 91 and 92. They're more vehicles or machines in future years, similar to the ones we passed on the previous page.
Councilor Almeida.
No. Thumbs up.
Thumbs up. Okay. We'll move to item 93, which is Service Center Mezzanine, which is started but not completed. Yes.
I would just like some information on what is this service center? I don't know if I've been there.
Through the chair, that's our new fancy name, apparently, for the Works Yard building. So that project is, it was just one of those ones that was requested by, through the union, that it's basically expands the change room. And so what that is, it's a second floor mezzanine at the Public Works yard. And so there's no, the change room for the ladies right now is quite small. It's a single bathroom. So what this does is it just takes the existing change room and it becomes co-ed, and there's separate little rooms in there similar to other places in operation with fire halls and things. So that becomes co-ed, and then it creates a larger washroom specifically for the ladies as well.
Sounds good, thank you.
Any further discussion? We'll move to number 94, which is the Fire Hall 1 roof. Councilor Almeida.
I was going to say, since this is in 2026, I hope we have a better understanding of our fire hall situation by then, so might as well just move on.
To the 95, which is the Sunset Park Picnic Shelter. So Almeida.
I've been a regular user at Sunset Park. Is this a new build that's not in existence, or am I missing something?
Through the chair, this was from a community forest application in 2020, I believe, for this shelter as well as number 97, the bike park shelter. They didn't necessarily fit squarely in the Parks and Trails master plan, so I think the priority level of them was not significantly high, and they have not yet been built.
They're both community forest projects?
Through the chair, I believe they were.
Dote.
Yeah, so that's, that's in the Wildwood neighborhood, and I know the community, the Wildwood Ratepayers Association has been talking to Parks, Recreation, and Culture about that, and have been trying to come up with an appropriate design so there'll be a picnic shelter in the neighborhood. And the money's in the budget, and people I know in the neighborhood are looking forward to being able to get out of the rain on those rare rainy days that happen to us here.
Yes, Councilor Elliott.
So I'm just curious, because I don't recall the community forest project for the Sunset Park Picnic Shelter. Was it initiated by another, like a community group, and now we're just trying to implement, or?
Through the chair, that is correct. It was initiated by a community group, but for the city to do on its own infrastructure. So sometimes that is the case. Sometimes nonprofits ask for grants generally for their own infrastructure, but the odd time it gets submitted by a nonprofit for our own area to oversee.
Okay, so when was this approved?
Through the chair, it looks like it was in the spring of 2020.
So I see it's on the books for this year. Is there a capacity issue as to why we didn't move forward, or is there something else?
Through the chair, this goes a little bit before I was here, but what I'm sensing is that it's been put on the books each year on an ongoing basis, and then we've run into capacity issues. I was asked if we should bump it from last year to this year, so I said, well, yes, we don't have capacity last year in 2023, so we bumped it to this year, and I suspect that's what's been going on, and right now capacity is a challenge.
So that begs the question, are we going to dedicate some capacity this year for that project, or are we just still back burnering it?
Through the chair, we are intending to do a full priority setting exercise for the department to determine which projects we will deem we have capacity for. So that answer shall be coming.
Thank you.
No further questions. We will move to the complex arena heaters and deflectors, number 96. Questions? No questions. We'll move to 97, which is the shelter bike park, which is initiated somewhere after 16% completed. Any questions? No questions. We'll move to 98, which is the HVAC controls and systems upgrade. No questions. We will move to 99, which is finance, which is back to a Tempest. No questions about Tempest. So we'll move to 100, which is to replace Unit 110. Patient. Yes, Councillor Isaacson.
Would like to know what Unit 110 is.
Kurt, can't talk about it.
Thank you, through the chair. A couple things with this one. That is showing us 2024. That's our mistake. It should be 2028. So we should be correcting that one for you on the when we go to final budget. And for your information, that is Unit 110. It's a blue van. I don't think it's the most attractive one we have. And it's a bylaw vehicle. So we're actually trying to, we have a replacement coming for other Colorado this year. So that's the one that's supposed to come in the next month or so. What we'd like to do is get rid of this 110. What takes its place will be replaced in 2028. So that's a typo.
Thank you.
No further questions. We'll move to 101, which is the main electrical panel at Rec Complex.
It's important.
No questions?
I do. I'll ask a question. The main electric panel at the Rec Complex sounds super important. It looks like it's in this year's budget, but you have it as a number 2. Was it something you thought you may not have capacity to tackle, or what's?
Through the chair, good pick up on that one. Number 101 electrical panel, and a little bit further down, I'm just trying to read number 110 complex site transformer. Both of those, as early as this morning, we're working with our engineering provider on our overall electric transition project that we're doing. Those may be included in the project, and we're just awaiting final confirmation if it's actually within that current budget, which it may be, and then we can take these off the books completely.
Oh, okay, thank you.
See a consensus that we can discuss 101 and 110 at the same time? Great. We'll move to 102, which is park signage upgrades, which is at least 45% completed. No discussion. We'll move to 103, which is Craftco Crack sealant. Seeing no questions, we'll move to 104, which is the Rec Complex cladding. Yes, Councillor Isaacson.
Thank you, Mayor Wasno. Obviously, this isn't enough money to clad the entire Rec Complex. So what is this in relationship to, and why priority 2? Could it be deferred?
Through the chair, this is some of the worst of the cladding that we want to fix up. And you're right, it won't do it all.
Okay. To fire rescue set 1, Jaws of Life. Councillor Armida.
Just to the chief, I'm seeing this in 26, which I'm guessing is just a regular replacement upgrade of series. They have a lifespan of Jaws of Life, because that seems like a major important thing to have when you need it.
Correct. Yes, the system that they have is coming. The replacement parts are getting harder and harder to get due to the age of them. So we will be trying to replace those with newer technology. which will be battery operated, which should cut costs significantly moving forward.
No pun intended.
No pun intended.
To 106, which is the expansion tank 1 boiler room at the complex. No questions. We'll move to 107 and maybe 108. Both finance, both replace the Tempest application and the Tempest web server. No questions on those? Oh.
Just have a question for our finance staff. Yeah, you're off generally pretty prudent and risk averse, so curious as to why this is a priority 2.
Through the chair, I'll bring up our IT manager, Mr. Tate. Thank you.
Through the chair, these servers are 8 years old and it's just time. So instead of them failing, we'll replace them.
So then, but they're level 2, not level 1. And so like they're working, but
Working.
ideally.
They're working, but it wouldn't be a big surprise if they stopped working.
Thank you.
Questions? We'll move to fire again. This is replacing unit RS2. See no questions. To 111, which is the compressor. This is no questions on the compressor. We'll move to 112, which is the tandem trailer replacing. This is Parks. Any questions for Parks? No questions. Move to 113, which is again a server question for finance. Any questions? Questions. Again, 114 is the Dwight Hall acoustic panels. Question? Yes, Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, Your Worship. I believe this has been on the docket for a really long time too. Dwight Hall has just the acoustics are really bad, and I believe the previous council approved this project quite a long time ago. Is it just a capacity issue? Why can't we just do a contract and put these panels up?
Through the chair, I would normally rely on Mr. Bertig. So I will be paraphrasing him because I had similar questions earlier in the capital planning. And so I do recall specifically this item and challenges he had sourcing appropriate acoustic materials. One of the concerns was that it was based on a study, and when they looked into the study further, there was a chance that all of these panels could be purchased and very little to no difference in the acoustics could be the result. And so at that point, Mr. Bertig is currently looking into the project further before pursuing any spending, because I think he wants more assurance that whatever is delivered will actually provide the results that the public are looking for. However, being a very niche type of industry, I think it's just taking some time to get answers and the amount of assurance he needs to pursue any purchases. As an additional challenge, being a heritage building, I recall him mentioning the difficulties in finding something that would be aesthetically suitable. So I apologize that I don't have Mr. Bertig here today. That's the conversation we had around capital planning.
Thank you.
Councillor Almeida.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm not opposed to keeping this, but as I see it's scheduled for 2025, and Councillor Elliott referenced it being decided in a previous council, I fear that we don't have enough budgeted for whenever Mr. Bertig's able to get the right information. We might only be budgeted for half of what we actually need with the way everything's gone in costs and stuff like that. So eventually it's probably going to come back to a bigger request down the road.
So Doug.
I agree with the staff who are basically pointing out that there are two issues. One issue is the sound deadening, And the other issue is the fact that it's a heritage building, and people who go there for events like to go there because of the building and the feeling of being amongst the architecture that they're in when they go there. So, you know, I think we have to be a little more sensitive and careful when we're trying to deaden the sound in a building like that we still have a building that people want to attend events in.
Makes them feel like they're there in 1930.
Question, Mayor Wasno. When I scan the rest of these lists, Dwight Hall isn't mentioned anywhere else. We had a couple of items mentioned previously. So I'm asking the chair for a little bit of leeway. The kitchen in Dwight Hall has often been a concern for being great for user groups. And I'm wondering, is there a reason that this is not on the books in our capital plan?
Through the chair, we didn't add very many new asks in here, and that we've recognized that that was a new ask that we heard from council not that long ago, if I recall correctly. That might be a good thing to go through community forests. At this point, because of our capacity issues, we haven't added it as a new ask, but we would be excited to move forward on something like that at the appropriate time for sure.
To traffic light upgrade, which is 115. Councilor Almeida.
I guess my only question with this, I don't know the cost of what traffic lights are, but I feel like 20 grand doesn't get you very far in a traffic light. So I'm just
Wondering what the
curious, I guess, the minimal cost, and are we just fixing a red light, or to what extent?
Through the chair, that's just a more of a maintenance and replaced small portions of our traffic lights in town is what that's for. And just for your information, a fully lit intersection with traffic lights, it's over $250,000 kind of thing. So these are just maintenance pieces.
To pool exhaust fan, which is 116. No discussion. We will move to 117, which is the Lincoln Welder. Yes, Councilor Isaacs.
Yeah, there's a number of items for in infrastructure and ops that are years in the future. So I'm going to suggest that see if there's the will of council to skip 117, 118, 119, 122, 123, 125, 126 on this page, future year items.
We have a consensus. I see some. Great. So done. Move us to item 120, which is floor scrubber. Apparently we know all we need to know about floor scrubbing.
I know they need to be scrubbed.
121, which is a variable frequency drive complex boiler. Okay.
What is that? I know that it's probably something to do with heating up water. Is it for the pool?
It's the main boiler. I don't know what a variable frequency drive is. I'd have to ask my chief engineer, but it's something with respect to our boiler system in the boiler room. So it'd be for the entire building, not just the pool.
It's not very expensive.
Councilor,
Just for the people in the gallery, a lot of these items are Powell River Community Forest funded. Just for your information, they're not coming out of the taxpayers' wallet. Community Forest is here working hard.
Through the chair. Should I? Okay. The Powell River Community Forest, just for background, is a government business entity that's fully owned by the city and is fully controlled by the city. So it is city funds, but the board itself does so much work behind the scenes. And so truly echoing and acknowledging that work of some volunteers on the board and the contractor who runs the operation and provides dividends to the city that are just, it's an incredible opportunity for the city to have. It is fully owned by the city. It is taxpayer money, but we're, to echo Councillor Palm's point, very grateful for.
All right. We'll move now to Councillor Southcott's favorite discussion item 124, which is an automatic bicycle counters. Councillor Almeida.
Yeah, I'm just curious because we're not Amsterdam. And this seems like it's been on the docket for a couple of years. So why are we counting bicycles? And I know it's not a big cost, but that's, yeah.
Through the chair to Councillor Almeida, it is a good way to gather data when making applications for grant funding to the BC Active Transportation. So whether it's you're installing them before you redo an intersection or you're installing them after, again, it's a good way to show the change in usage.
This is like at a light or whatever, it's counting bikes that are going by sort of thing?
So through the chair again, one of the intersections that we're interested in looking at is the Manson-Duncan following the infrastructure change there. Just so that we can show, we did have some data counts done. QRCA were very valuable in counting bicyclists prior to, but they're not always available to do that work for us, and bicycle little counters that sit on the roadside and count bicycles that go by are a very efficient way for us to gather that data to show that there has been a change in behavior.
Okay. Thank you.
Just a question.
Question.
Yeah, so we don't have one yet and we want one, is that right? Or we do have one and we're just using this to maintain it?
Through the chair, no, the devices themselves are quite efficient, cost efficient once purchased. So this would be to purchase units.
Okay, I get it, thanks.
Yeah, just a quick question. These are different than the ones that Parks and Rec have for counting pedestrians, like down at the seawall?
I'm happy to answer this through the chair to Councillor Southcott. And perhaps my colleague, Mr. Betzlaff, will correct me if I'm wrong. Again, these ones haven't been purchased. Effectively, the ones the Parks and Rec have down on the seawall are doing essentially the same thing. These would be in addition to that, these units.
Yes.
Through the chair, I just have to give an update that those bicycle counters were purchased. So they have been purchased. You just haven't seen them arrive on this sheet. So they have arrived, and our staff was planning to install them at the locations provided to us by planning.
Thank you.
Money's gone then.
It's a happy birthday to Director Gal then. Just a final question, I guess. I'm assuming based on the conversation, they're mobile so we can move them to different intersections and stuff?
Through the chair, absolutely. That's exactly correct.
Okay. We'll move now to an item that all of us former hockey players are interested in, and that's the minor hockey renovate Regal's coaches' first aid rooms. Any need for further discussion? Seeing none, we'll flip the page to 128, which is a digital building inspection and upgrades. No questions. 129 is the treadmill.
What?
Questions? We have, yes, Councillor Dote.
Yeah, just, I imagine these could be all over the place. You just give us a little information on where that and the next treadmill are located.
Through the chair, we've got our treadmills and other gym equipment that you can see in here in our gym at the rec complex. These are the items that have reached their lifespan according to our asset management and review of the machinery. Not imminent, but they're seeing pretty decent wear.
Councillor Isaac.
Yes, thank you. I'm wondering, if you skip down to 138, it says fitness center and theater upgrades. And so is 138 not the equipment, then it's the rooms themselves? I just want to make sure that we're not doubling the difference.
Through the chair, that is correct. And I'm going to get Mallory to explain that one. Sorry.
No, that's okay. Through the chair. Item number 138, you'll notice has this $4.8 million grant, and you see the project in 2026. I just want to note that that is not a grant that we have received. It's that project would require $4.8 million in grant if it were to be done. The history on this, which predates me, is when the rehabilitation plan was brought forward for the complex, many of the items that were recommended in there were put in the 10-year capital plan, and we're seeing them start to approach, and we're really questioning, okay, which of these do we need to do, which is why we'll bring back a comprehensive plan on the rec center. Thank you.
Okay, so yes, Councillor Elliott.
So, was this part of accessibility recommendations from the Hansen assessment, or do you mean something else?
Through the chair, I believe this is not through the Rick Hansen. This is through the rehabilitation of the complex.
Oh, the overall complex plan. Oh, okay. And then, so the requirement for grants, there is no identified source for that. We have to find that.
Through the chair, yes, that is correct. When we do long-term capital planning, we're mostly just looking 10 years out. We might identify a project that we know we won't have the funding for at the rate we're contributing to our reserves,
okay.
But we don't want that project to not be part of the plan. So sometimes we identified specific projects that will need grant funding. And there are grants that come up, such as Strategic Priorities Fund or the Growing Communities Fund. And it helps us identify projects that could really use that funding that will come, but we don't know about yet. So there are times in the capital plan when we do designate some grant funding that we don't know about yet. And you'll see it in the projects that are generally 2026 and beyond. They're projects that are farther out.
Do we risk our study becoming out of date so they would have to redo it in order to apply?
Through the chair, we haven't applied for any grants here.
No.
We haven't applied for grants. We just know that if we wanted to pursue this project, we would need to apply for grants or designate future grant funding to this project.
Yeah, I guess my question was the study that we base the need on would be part of the grant application process. And without an updated one, would we even be in a position to apply for a grant?
Through the chair, you are correct that that's something we need to revisit. And I think as Ms. Denniston and Mr. Bradslaff pointed out, we are in the process of doing an overall. Right now, you've got pieces of the complex dating back to when that was looked at. And we need to look at this as a whole and come back to you with a whole list that will include some of these components, including updates to the estimates that you have here. Thank you.
Thank you.
So Isaac.
Thank you. I'm going to recommend that we skip 129, 130, 131, 136, and 137. These are all gym equipment replacements that are all in the same category.
Those numbers again for us?
129, 130, 131, 136, and 137.
Okay, do I see a consensus? Here's up, Councillor Palm.
Just for the record, I just want to clarify something through the chair, and that is we are applying for a future grant, and the numbers are pretty specific, 4.7 million and change. Reserve, again, 1.7 million and change. Those are pretty specific, though. Had we applied for a grant in the
past? Through the chair, no. I know they look specific, but it has to do with when we're balancing our reserves and forecasting our reserves. We'll say, okay, that 1.7 number was what would have been available in the reserve. And then the 4.7 number was the estimated cost minus what we estimate to have in the reserve. That's why they're specific numbers, because we're using reserve balance forecasts.
in terms of the 1.7, that's not community funds tied up for any length of time.
Through the chair, no.
Okay, we'll move to 132, which is 82% spent finance. Okay, see no discussion. 133 is finance again, replacing watch guards. Yes.
Looking at the rest of the list, considering the two biggest items on the list are both grant related. Outside of the complex utility storage shed, I might propose that I can forecast that the rest of the list is going to be skipped over by council. So unless someone's got a specific request, I might suggest we skip over the rest of the list. I could be wrong on that, but.
To make life easier for our corporate officer, do you want to?
Numbers, I think you're at 132 to 152.
I see a consensus. All right, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Just wanted to comment a little bit. Your worship.
This one. Yes. Sir.
Just a small comment on the process and the ability for us to look at the capital plan and have that opportunity for staff to explain things for us. I found it valuable and I appreciated it, and I wanted to thank staff for the hard work and the availability for us to do this exercise.
Councillor Dote.
Mr. Mayor, I think we have to actually do item 8, number 1, 8.1, which is recommend that staff be directed to incorporate the changes regarding the 2024 5-year capital plan draft 1 carried at the January 25th, 2024 special council meeting into the 5-year financial plan draft 2.
Any discussion? All in favor? That's unanimously. Do we have a motion? Yes, Councillor Almeida.
I'll move that following the adjournment of this meeting, council move into a closed meeting to discuss matters covered by the community charter under section 91G, litigation or potential litigation affecting the municipality. I, the receipt of advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose.
Point of information first, Your Worship. Our previous closed meeting is in recessed, and so I'm wondering, is this the right motion to make at this time?
Through the chair, yes. So this will apply to when you go into that closed meeting. We'll reconvene the other closed meeting and then we'll close that up and go into the new one and keep it all nice and clean.
Thank you for the clarity.
Great. Seconded. All in favor? Great. We now move to our favorite part of the day, which is question periods, starting with Mr. Galinsky. Any questions from members of the audience? Any online questions? Oh, sorry. Yes. Please come forward and identify yourself.
Hello, Robin Murray, here to ask just a couple of questions. It was quite interesting to listen to all of the numbers and see where all the money is going and being used in this in the city. On point number 13 regarding the Seawalk, I remember the storm of a little over 2 years ago that damaged it, and it's been repaired, and it's still in nice shape, and it looks great. But so we've been waiting for this to get done. How much money has been spent on consultants while we're waiting to get this fixed? Do we know?
Okay,
Through the chair to Mr. Robin, I'm sorry, I lost your last name.
Sure.
I think finance staff is looking into it. So we believe the majority of what's been spent to date on archaeology fees and maybe some design is 37,085.
Through the chair, when this was built, it was built in 2 stages. I remember it was done just after we got here. The second stage was done by the Talaman Construction Company. Wouldn't the initial middens and everything that were looked at, wouldn't that still be looked after now, or do you have to start from ground zero?
Through the chair to the speaker, there is additional work in other areas being looked at in addition to that historical piece. And so there is new information, new areas, and also through the province, more diligence required, understandably. So if you like, I can actually ensure that we look at the breakdown of what portion was consultants. We don't have that exactly at this time. But I hope that helps. And I think I'd like to repeat again, the work we're doing is to prevent future risk and liability that could far exceed even the cost of the project when it comes to archaeology. So, thank you.
Thank you. Will it be started to get worked on this year?
Through the chair, I think I would love to say yes. I think there's a few factors between working with the province and Tla'amin that we still have to resolve. So I don't have an answer, or I'm looking to my right, don't have an answer for you at this time.
Thank you. I've got actually many questions, but I'll just keep it to a couple of them. The crosswalks at Alberni and Ontario, I was in the meetings here when they were talked about many times. And when they were talked about, I thought we were going to be getting the lights and flashing lights and everything like that. And I was surprised to drive by and just see 2 signs and paint on the pavement. And looking at the costs, they're going to be doing, is that something similar on Manson? And does it really cost $50,000 to do each one of these?
Through the chair to the speaker, I think with the one on Manson across at the park, that one I believe is planned with the flashing lights.
Great, thank you. And number 124 regarding the auto bike counters. Do they own, a couple of things about it, the sensors? Do they only track bicycles, or how do they differentiate between bicycles, people, and vehicles?
Through the chair, I believe they track both, to be honest, and I'm not sure the exact detail. I know planning is the one that collects a lot of the data, so I would just look over to Mr. Gao to ask if that is differentiated.
Okay. Through the chair, if I might step in, I think if we could take your information, we will get back to you with an accurate answer. Thank you.
And the mid-level, number 67, the mid-level connector. I was partial to those conversations here probably over 2 years ago now, or about 2 years ago. One thing we talked about, or I'd asked about, was shoulders on the highway. I used to work at Brooks, and I used to watch students walk along the highway or ride their bike or try to ride their bike, and it was quite a dangerous situation. I was told that as part of the highways department, and they would be doing something about it, and here we are a couple years later, and it still hasn't happened. Is the city working with the highways department to get them to widen that part of the road? That's the section between Town Site and Brooks and Willington Beach.
I think Councillor Southcott may have a
I am a cyclist, and they did actually,
Yeah.
they did expand the shoulders. So it isn't as dangerous as it used to be. That was a while ago now too. So it might even be before the time that you're questioning. However, I do ride I do ride the cut, but not many others do, because it is kind of threatening. But some people still will do it. But the shoulders really are nicer on both sides.
I'll have to take a closer
For
look.
the most part, there's still problems, but
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any additional questions from the audience? Any questions online? No. Councillor Palm.
Worship, I have received an email from a citizen regards to a couple of questions to today's ongoing discussions. Do you mind if I ask those for the individual, or what's your prerogative?
I'm going to ask what protocol is from our corporate officer.
Chair, it's certainly up to you if you would like to entertain the questions. It's your meeting.
Councillor Doubt.
Just on a point of process, Mr. Mayor, when somebody approaches the microphone, we ask them for their name, some identification so we know who they are. And I don't have any objection to people getting text questions as long as they tell us who's asking the question.
All right, Councillor Palm.
So, Your Worship, the question comes from Mr. T. Fox. I have no idea who that is, but I do have a telephone number if staff needs it.
I think you can proceed unless, yes, you can proceed.
Okay, so his question number one is, which is short and to the point, is, has there ever been any consideration for tendering vehicle purchase?
Through the chair, vehicle purchases are typically tendered. Starting with the local folks. So we start with our local folks. We actually invite them if that's something that they sell, and we also put it out for others to bid on as well. And then there's a certain threshold for tendering where we have to go to BC bid. That's typically the larger ones. I believe it might be over 90,000 K where we go province-wide as well.
Question number two regarding I think it's the upgrade to the washroom at the yard. Is questioning the expense of $667,000. Am I correct on that? As far as location? Or was that the campsite?
That's the complex public washroom and arena accessibility. That's the $600,000+.
Okay. So I think we've dealt with that one. And then the last question is, has there been any consideration by staff or discussions regarding contracting out of garbage and organic pickup?
Through the chair, from time to time, we do have vendors that approach. I think there was one back in 2020 that had approached just operationally to see if there's any fit. But as far as I know, we never engaged that sort of thing with a contracted service. I can say that, and you'll see it in the February 1st report, as far as yearly fees for the services that we offer, even with going to our new organics program, that we were still among the municipalities that we looked at, and you'll see that on that report that we're still the lowest, and a number of them have contracted services. I like to think that's because we do it in-house, and I like to think that's because, we're able to do that with our own staff and our own vehicles, and the profit goes back to the community. It's a self-funded, there is no profit really, but that sort of thing. So that's a good answer.
Gentleman just points out that a lot of municipalities and cities have gone that route of contracting those services out. So it's kind of intriguing to me in terms of cost savings. Anyway, just point that out.
Thank you very much. Do we have anybody online with a question? No?
Motion to adjourn.
Seconded? All in favor? Thank you very much. We will now take a 10-minute break before we start a closed